Ahoy! Today we are talking about Drake Hollow. What is Drake Hollow, you may ask? Well, Drake Hollow is this, but also this. So, as you can tell from that, Drake Hollow is a little bit of a crazy mix of various different things. Before we get started, a quick shout out to the developers here who provided me with an early access key to get an exclusive look at the game before it releases on PC. To very briefly sum up Drake Hollow, I would say it's a mix of Pokemon or Tamagotchi, Fortnite Save the World mode, and a melee heavy action RPG. I don't want to say Dark Souls, so take your pick, anything that has dodging, blocking and melee attacks. Then also sprinkle in a little bit of Grounded or Don't Starve for the survival and exploration aspect, as well as the fact that the game can be played in up to 4-player multiplayer, and you should have a very rough picture. However, don't be fooled by the cute and slightly Fortnite-y visuals of the game. It has a very steep learning curve and you take pretty heavy damage in combat if you don't dodge and block properly. This game punishes you for misplaying. Healing is very limited unless you specifically found the required items or you choose to return to the base very frequently. At the same time, the game is designed in a way where you can play 100% at your own pace, so you can make it really as hard or as easy as you want to. There's a massive difference in difficulty for someone who returns to base after every island they explored and tries to heal up and get healing plants all the time, and someone who tries to rush through the story of the game. Additionally, the difficulty also depends a lot on how many players you choose to play with. After this very long introduction, a quick word on the developers. The developers are The Molasses Flood, a studio that is formed by veterans of BioShock, Halo and a few other games, and they had one previous game which was The Flame in the Flood, a roguelite river journey. It shares some components with Drake Hollow. You can see that it's kind of in the same genre, but also has a lot of differences in how it's laid out, the visual style and everything else. So it's definitely not a carbon copy of that. So now let's break down the individual components of this story-based, multiplayer, survival-based, building-based, defense, resource management, exploration or hide-and-seek action RPG a little bit more. Shall we? First up, yes, it's a story-based game, but not only a story-based game. The current mode is focused on a storyline that you follow through, even though the story doesn't really force itself on you, and if you want to know all the details, then you have to find nodes across the world. Without spoiling too much here, it's a little bit of an Alice in Wonderland type of journey and you meet many mysterious creatures. Outside of that, the developers are currently working on a sandbox mode, which I guess will give you more focus on the base defense aspect especially. And then there's supposed to be a creative mode in a later stage as well, though I'm not quite sure how that one will set itself apart, but that will also come with different difficulty settings. The next aspect is the multiplayer. You can play the entire game completely on your own if you want to, but there are some advantages to playing with other players, such as them being able to revive you. At the same time, you'll have to share more resources. That, however, is a minor trade-off in comparison to the benefits you get, in my opinion. You can play with up to 4 players. I have only played with 2. I imagine that if you played with 4 players, the game would be easier. I cannot tell if enemies scale up with the number of players present. So far it didn't seem like that, but I can't say that for sure. The survival aspect of the game is twofold. On one hand, you have to manage your own health. Nothing all too crazy there. You have healing, you take damage, that's it. On the other hand, you have to manage your base resources. There are 3 resources that you need to manage: water, food, and entertainment. These resources don't affect you though. They affect your drakes. The drakes are little plant-like creatures that you can find all over the world, and they live in your base. They operate parts of your base and can give you other perks that we'll get to later, but they also have demands in return, and that is to be fed and watered and have enough fun. Additionally, they also need a place to sleep at night, but that one is relatively easy to take care of. So what can you do in order to provide them with those resources? Well, the more tedious way in the beginning is to collect them all over the world and bring them into your base. However, later into the game, you will find ways to create structures that can create those things for you, so you don't have to constantly run back. Or I should more accurately say glide back, because one of the structures you can build are waypoints, which allow you to glide between them and are super fun. Now, when it comes to base building, things improve over time. Initially, you're limited to very basic constructs, but the further you progress into the game, the better the things that you can unlock for schematics get. At the same time, more complex structures often require more additional resources as well. So for example, in order to provide food for your drakes, you would initially make a little plant field where you can put down your seeds that you collect on your journey. Later in the game, you can build a lobster tank that you have to supply with electricity and water. And if you supply those things, then they will grow new lobsters automatically. At the same time, you now need to build a water pump somewhere else, and then you need to generate electricity somewhere. And once you reach the point of the game where there are more efficient water pumps, the water pumps themselves will also need additional electricity. And so on and so on. You get the idea here. Upgrading is usually worth it though, because the amount of resources that you can create at later stages is significantly higher, which means throughout the game you will rebuild parts of your base, take some down, and then put something better up quite frequently. But of course, not everyone is happy with your little village in the wild, so there are regular raid attacks on your base. Initially, you definitely have to deal with those yourself. You have to go back to the base and defend it. At later stages, you can start building defensive structures in your base. It starts with simple walls, but later gives you a choice of tools that automatically cut, shock, or shoot your enemy. However, your base camp budget is not unlimited. You can level up your base through various things and therefore increase it, but you are always restricted to a certain point, which forces you to decide between building more things for your drake, more things for defense, or generally decide on the size of your base as well. Conveniently, certain things that are there to structure your base, such as poles for the power lines, don't cut into your budget. As you can see, I didn't utilize that at all. And then there's the exploration aspect of the game. You have to go from island to island and use specific resources to even get through the sea between the islands. And on those islands you can find various resources, as well as trucks that you can connect to your base in order to get extra resources from them, and you can find drakes. Any of these little guys that you find in the wild will be brought to your base, and you can then choose the buff that they offer to you as a benefit for yourself. The amount of buff slots accessible to you scales with the base level. Initially it's just one, but you get more over time. And last but not least, there's of course the action RPG aspect when it comes to the combat. You have your dodge, block, and melee attacks. You have quick weapons, slower weapons, some with crit chance, some without or with less of it. And you also have a variety of different ranged weapons, which are incredibly strong, but the ammo is also incredibly limited, so you won't frequently make use of those. There are some pretty cool combat mechanics that I only really learned by trial and error. For example, there's a ranged enemy, and you can actually launch back their projectile by mailing it at the right time, which I thought was pretty cool. Drake Hollow does have cosmetics, but you unlock them completely for free. When exploring islands, you can find chests which have a chance to drop cosmetics, and those will be added to your inventory permanently, so they're not just restricted to that one game save, but even if you play with someone else on another game save or on your own, you will keep the cosmetics. One little thing that I wanted to mention here that you can't see from the video is the music. The music theme while exploring the world is really soothing, very relaxing, and then it has a more intense combat theme, and I think the music choice in many areas is really enjoyable. At this point you may be wondering when and where and how can I even play Drake Hollow and how much does it cost? We'll get to that in a second, but before that, if you enjoyed the video so far, feel free to hit the sub button and maybe the bell, so that you'll be updated of upcoming videos about Drake Hollow. I have quite a few videos planned over the next few days, so if you want to get beyond just the basics, then those videos will be for you. I'm planning to do a full review as well as various tips and tricks. So, how can you play Drake Hollow? Well, if you're on Xbox, you're in luck. The game is already released on Xbox as well as on the Game Pass, so if you own that, you don't need to pay anything to get it. Well, except your Game Pass fee. Not only that, the game is coming to PC super soon. It'll come to both Steam as well as the Microsoft Store, the Game Pass essentially on PC as well therefore. And I will make sure to release a review for the Steam version specifically before it releases as well, because I have been able to play that Steam version. The Microsoft Store version, or Xbox Game Pass version, has the benefit of allowing crossplay between PC and Xbox players, so if that's your thing and your friends on the Xbox, then you want to go for that one. And the Steam version has the benefit of being a little bit cheaper. If you buy the game close to launch, then it'll have a 10% discount, and if you own the Flame and the Flood, then you get an additional 15% discount on top of that. The price is not listed on Steam yet, but I'm assuming it will be the same as the Microsoft Store, which would be $30 without any discounts applied. If it's worth that price is something that I'll discuss in my review. With that, thank you guys for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe also Drake Hollow. And other than that, I hope to see you for the next one soon. Duke Sloth, out.